Hello there, this is Mr. Steve, and you're listening to the Wax Museum Companion Podcast. It is a relatively cool Thursday evening as we record this. I'm here with the other hosts of the Wax Museum. One, Mr. Ronald Reginald Reuven Dark, and
Triple R Dark,
and one, Michael Mickle Mookle Mockle Adams, the Night Owl.
Mickle Light? No,
Mickle Light.
No, I'm Mickle Heavy, I'm afraid.
Mickle Heavy.
Mickle Lobe.
No.
And our commander is off today.
Yes, the commander is on assignment. He's a very busy man, but he does send his love to the entire audience. He is still in love with all of you as we are. We thank you for listening to our show on Sunday nights from 7 to 10 p.m. right here on YouTube.
And we do have commander picks for the show, too, which is awesome.
Yes, we do. We have the picks that he has made. And so we have a really interesting show this week. Ron got off to the Bouckville festival out there and found some real hidden gems out there. And we're excited. We're spinning them this week along with a bunch of other fun tunes, so we just like to we'll dive right into it. You know, one of the tunes that you told me you found at Bouckville, Ron, is playing in our show this week, and that was Ink Pot by Shocking Blue.
Yeah, that's right, Steve. Mike and I on Monday, a couple Mondays ago, took the trip to the Bouckville Antique Fair. I've been going to that fairly regularly for about 16 or 17 years now, and it's always a fun time. And you know, sometimes you find a few gems, and then sometimes you find nothing. And then on some occasions, you really luck out and just come home with a pile of fun records that you didn't really pay a lot of money for. And that was the latter case, at least for me, and I'm pretty sure it was for Mike too, right?
Yeah, you got some really cool 45s, and I got some really cool 78s.
Yeah. We saw our friend Steve Rock from Utica had a booth there, and the majority of the records I got actually from Steve, and the majority of my selections for this week's Wax Museum come from Bouckville. And you mentioned the Shocking Blue. That was a promo-only single that was released in 1973, Ink Pot, probably one of the last ones they put out in the U.S. by that band. The Shocking Blue recorded all the way into the early 80s, but minus Venus and a couple other entries, they didn't really have much success after that.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, that was the first time that I heard that song, Ink Pot, but it's a great tune.
And we have plenty of listeners. I didn't mean to cut you off, Mike. We have got a lot of listeners that are big fans of Shocking Blue. Eric Hookway specifically comes to mind.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
The Venus album is incredible. Every track on it's really good.
I like both their Colossus records. They used to turn up fairly regularly. Again, we're talking 20 years ago, but now you don't see too many Shocking Blue records out there.
You know, that's the cool part about actually taking the time to listen to whole albums sometimes, you know, is you find those gems that you didn't know existed, you know, and I don't know, that's what, you know, that's what a lot of the music that you guys choose and spin on the show has done for me over the years, you know, like. That's
why I'm really attracted to 45s. Mm-hmm. Not romantically, obviously. I meant attracted in the sense of, of the music. And there's just so much there's so many songs out there that still haven't been comped. A lot of artists that just, the only way you could find it was on a 45. And that's it's always been an appeal to me to find those records. And obviously I love albums too, but the majority of the tracks I picked were 45s I got at Bouckville, yeah.
Right, you know, and sometimes with 45s, you'll find different versions that are unavailable, you know, like they're not, you know, the common version that people have heard. Like there's alternate mixes and
abridged stereo mono copies.
Exactly.
A great example of this would be, this wasn't Bouckville, but about 18 years ago, the commander, John Walsh, and I went to a garage sale in Bridgeport, New York. Who turns out we found out that he's a fellow record collector that we met through Syracuse Vintage Vinyl many years later, but we didn't know him at the time. Right. But John and I went to this sale. This was a few years before we met Mike. This is actually before the Wax Museum, and this sale was fantastic. It was mostly 45s, but there were a decent amount of albums there, and I could tell you, 3 records. When I can remember records I got at a garage sale, you know it was a good garage sale.
Right. This was a garage sale 18 years ago, and
Yes.
you remember it clearly.
I found the Monkees Changes on vinyl.
Oh, wow.
Original Cold Gem pressing. And then I found Hermit's Truck Stop Mama, which came out on Roulette. We played that not too long ago, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was the Kingsmen from 1973 on Capitol.
Uh-huh.
And what happened was, what's cool about that is the Kingsmen had kind of lost the rights to their name in late 67. I don't know whether it was because Lynn Easton, who kind of ripped the band off. Originally, Jack Eli, who sang the original Louie Louie, was the front man for the band. But then Lynn Easton's family, or his mother, got him to copyright the name. So he wound up taking the band over. And then one by one, various members left. Norm Sunholm, who was the bass player, wound up, him and his brother formed Sun Amplifiers.
Oh, okay.
S-U-N-N.
Yeah, of course.
So I think Lynn ran into some legal issues and wound up having to surrender the name. So in 1968, Joey Levine put out a 45 on the Earth record label that's in Kingsman in name only. But a few years after that, Mike Mitchell, who was the band's guitar player, and a couple of the other members were able to get the rights back to the name and wound up making some recordings and got signed to Capitol. And they just put out the one record, but both sides are just rocking. And we've played You Better Do Right before on the show a few times over the years, but this week marks the first time we've ever played the B-side today on the show. So if you're fans of obscure, garage bands that kept recording into the 70s, you're really going to like that one.
Yeah, I was going to say that we have the feature this week, the both sides of the story, where we play the A side and the B side, and that we have the Kingsmen on that feature this week, like you said, You Better Do Right and Today. So that's really cool.
Another fun pick that Mike did was for Hot Tuna.
Yes, I was just going to bring that up. I was going to say I really love Jorma Kaukonen, and when I saw that he picked Hot Tuna this week, I was a little excited.
Jack Cassidy on the bass.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I never got a chance to see Jefferson Airplane or Jefferson Starship, but I did see Hot Tuna at the State Theater in Ithaca, New York back in 1999, and they did a half acoustic set and then half electric set, and it was just great.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I seen them a few years ago. They were still amazing.
Did they do any Jefferson Airplane songs, or was it just all Hot Tuna stuff?
It was mostly Hot Tuna stuff.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, they have a pretty extensive catalog as Hot Tuna, so
they were not, for being members of such a legendary band as Jefferson Airplane, they were not as enamored with the political side of things as much as Grace or Paul Kantner. And they wanted to just focus on the blues sound that they liked. So, Mike, you picked out I See the Light.
Yeah, great rockin' tune by them, actually. The more rockin' side.
And I looked at a lot of different versions that were, because I have it on vinyl. And I decided to take a version that was live from the Midnight Special from 1974. So I thought that would be a unique take.
Yeah, and plus you can't go wrong with the Midnight Special shows. I mean, I love so many performances off that show.
Also, we had a request for the Grateful Dead live as well, so I put the two artists together because they work really well together.
Yeah, both the tracks that you chose go hand in hand. I noticed that when I was listening to the show this week.
Another one, Mike, that you picked was Middle of the Road. I thought that I'd completely forgotten about that song.
Chirpy, chirpy, cheep, cheep. It was a song that we all tried to forget about in the 70s when that song first came out, but then you don't hear it anymore, and then you hear it again, and it's like, gee, I kind of like this song. Now you don't hear it every day anymore.
There was another version, like Matt and Kate Kissoon, I think, did a version of it on ABC.
Yeah.
And, there was a couple songs that were like that. Like Can't Find the Time was originally done by Orpheus. But there's another version which is just as good by a group called Rose Colored Glass on Bang.
Oh, okay. Was that the same rose colored that was on Atco?
Maybe.
Oh,
no, maybe. That's Rose Garden you're thinking.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, this week I chose a song called Moonlight Feels Right by Starbuck, right? And I happen to be thinking of that because every time I hear that song, I remember one of the first times that I heard it, or at least consciously heard it, and that was when I was a kid, and we were up at my camp in the Adirondacks, and back in the day, we didn't have any like power or anything up there, but we had a battery-powered radio, right? And it's up there in the north, and we're close to the border of Canada. So we got a lot of Canadian stations coming in over the FM dial. And I remember this one Canadian station, I played Moonlight Feels Right. And like, I was just kind of bopping along with it. That synth part in the chorus really got me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
the xylophone solo.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know, the song just stuck with me. And that song in particular reminds me of summer nights up at camp when, the sun had gone down and, we had the camp lit by a Coleman lantern and the battery-powered FM radio. I'm playing Canadian radio. That tune came on, and you know what else came on that I heard for the first time and like it kind of blew my mind when I was younger was a song by Chilliwack.
The Gone Gone?
Gone so long. That's the first time I ever heard that was on the Canadian radio. They played that. They played a lot of Bryan Adams.
The leader of that group, Bruce Blackman, has a very interesting discography. He was in a band called Yesterday's Children, which did some records for Tower in the late 60s. And then he formed the band Starbuck. And obviously, Moonlight Feels Right was their biggest hit. It came out on Private Stock Records.
He's got some new music out, too.
I was actually going to bring that up. I have Starbuck records going into the mid-'80s, like on 45s. Like, he continued recording well into the 1980s. And as Mike said, we're going to be featuring a new track next week, right?
Yes.
Yeah, very cool.
That's gonna be fun. That's what I love about this show. And speaking of interesting things too, we had a track by James Taylor and the Original Flying Machine.
Yes, I have to give credit to Peter Huffman with Kaleidoscope Radio, because maybe a couple months back on his show, he played Knocking Around the Zoo, not the version that's on James's Apple record, his debut album, but the record that he did under the name The Flying Machine, not the same Flying Machine that did Smile a Little Smile for Me. That was Tony Burrow's British band, totally different group. But he was in a California band called The Flying Machine, and they made some records that didn't really come out at the time. And of course, once he became famous, you see this with a lot of artists.
Pickwick got it.
Other labels decide to cash in, and they released the version of Knocking Around the Zoo, and it's very garagey take.
Pickwick was there.
Yeah, I think it came out on Euphoria Records. But yeah, oftentimes you'd see that, like would say Daryl Hall and John Oates, many groups that would put out, these labels would cash in. But it was a good cash in because it's a great version, and it's a lot different from the take that he did on his Apple debut.
Yeah, we got to give a shout out to Pete there, Pete Huffman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
great show, Kaleidoscope.
Yeah, he's on Tuesday nights on WAIFradio.org, and he features music more from like 64 to 74 is his bag, and it's definitely a bag we appreciate as well. So we were talking about Bouckville, just to kind of circle back to that real quick. Most of the stuff I bought was 45s, but I did find some cool albums. And again, Steve Rock, I was just going through a box of records, and I think Steve was talking with Mike at the time, and I pulled out Caravan's second album. If I had it to do it all over again, I'd do it all over you. That's the name of the album. Came out on London Records, and that's an album I've been looking for decades. And there it was in the box, and it was at a great price. And he even gave a discount even on what he had in the box, which frankly, I'm not going to say what I paid for it, but I would have paid what the number he had on it. But I took a track off that called Hello, Hello. And Caravan is an interesting group that doesn't really get as much credit for the prog rock that they did, probably because they weren't like a heavy prog band. In fact, their guitar player used a Fender Electric 12-string as part of his sound. That's what he played. And they were based off a group called the Wildflowers. So the Wildflowers were a group that played at the same time as Pink Floyd in the Canterbury scene, they called it. And the Wildflowers split off. Pye Hastings and Richard Sinclair went and formed Caravan. And then Mike Ratledge and Robert Wyatt, who were all together in this band, they went off and formed Soft Machine. So two legendary British prog bands came out of this one group. So that was pretty cool.
Right on. just lost my train of thought. Sorry about
Get
that.
your Rick Springfield. No, go ahead, Steve. You lead the way.
Well, I was just thinking about how we have one set in there that's kind of like our '80s set, you know, and we all had some really cool picks on that one, you know. I mean, you know, the commander, you know, he's really good at that AOR stuff, and he picked "Just the Same Way" by Journey. You know, one that you don't hear by Journey all the time
anymore. You used to hear it once in a while, but now hardly ever.
Well, it just reminds you of like how good a band they were at that time. You know,
you get up to about Departure, and then, I mean, Escape that's just such a big album for them, but it's not one I listen to very often. But they're one of those groups that probably people don't. It's kind of like Styx. They're like, "Oh, Mr. Roboto,"
right.
You know, whatever. And then you play them something that zonks their brain out, and they're like, "This is Styx."
Right.
Journey's kind of the same way. Like, Journey's got some really great deep cuts if you dig into those albums,
especially the first two.
Oh yeah, the Prague stuff that they were on, like the
oh my gosh,
the
yeah,
Santana trip.
Yeah, the early stuff is you know, like
The same with REO Speedwagon.
Oh,
their first few albums
REO,
were
same, yeah.
And they had different lead singers too. Terry Luttrell, who was their original singer, went on to join Starcastle, and then Mike Murphy was in the band for a spell, and Kevin Cronin was in the group a couple of times. Still sort of is, even though they're not really together anymore.
Yeah,
but
that's a weird thing going on right now.
REO is we didn't play them this week, but REO Speedwagon's an interesting band in that it took them 7 years to finally have a gold record, to have a big record, and it was with a live album. And then after that, they had You Can Tune a Piano, but You Can't Tune a Fish. And then, of course, High Infidelity.
Yeah, that's the one that set them sailing.
Yeah, and I kind of see that as the same as Journey. Like, some people write that era off. But then if you actually dig into those records, like on 9 Lives, there's Back on the Road Again. Great track.
Yeah, we used to cover Back on the Road Again when we were young lads in a band. And
I mean, they did play that on the radio.
Yeah,
but that was 30 years ago. They,
right. It's just one of the ones that they decided didn't fit the playlist format.
Yeah.
So and then in the 80s set, I chose a song that I personally love because I was thinking of like summer songs, and I was trying to think of something from the 80s, and so I picked "Suddenly Last Summer" by the Motels, and I don't know what it is about the Motels sound, but I really enjoy them. Like that song in particular reminds me of summers past myself. Martha, what's her name?
Martha Davis.
Martha Davis, yeah. The singer for that band. I don't know. I just love them, and they're still performing. So
I saw them a couple of years ago. They were great.
Fun fact about the Motels: Scott Thurston, who played guitar and keyboards in that band, was in the group Jump. They did that album on Janis.
Yes.
And then he also was in Iggy and the Stooges for a spell, and then spent the last 20 years playing with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then Mike has a song in there, "Lady Grinning Soul" by David Bowie.
David Bowie.
Bowie.
From my favorite Bowie album, Aladdin Sane.
Yeah.
That really is your favorite album? No
by
kidding.
Bowie, yeah.
I'm just curious why. Nothing wrong with that. I was just curious.
Oh, it's a rocker. It's just a rockin' album.
When did you first discover that?
I heard Cracked Actor, and I was enthralled with it, and I bought the album just for that one song. And then I wound up playing the rest of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good.
Unfortunately, my Bowie history, I became a fan much later in life. My father, full disclosure, I think anybody that's a longtime listener to the show knows that my father was a big influence on some of my musical choices, like the Styx and the Deep Purple and stuff like that. He did not listen to David Bowie, so I didn't grow up with it. The first Bowie I remember is "Let's Dance." And I like that song, and Tonight, and China Girl and all that. But I just thought he was an 80s artist for the longest time.
Oh, wow.
I never had a frame of reference.
Right.
And maybe about sometime in the early 90s on the classic rock station, I heard Rebel Rebel. And I like that. And then we have a mutual friend, Jason Lombardi.
I was going to bring up this story.
Jason is a big fan. He loved Suffragette City.
Hey, man.
Yeah. So
every time I hear that, I think of Jason.
Exactly. So we would drive in the car with him, And he had the tape of like David Bowie. I think it was Changes One Bowie. And I just fell in love with that song. And at the time in the 90s, trying to find any David Bowie on vinyl was near impossible. People just did not give up their David Bowie records. So it took me many years to kind of round out my Bowie collection. And I have a pretty healthy respect and love for his work now. So
man, my introduction to 70s Bowie that got me into 70s Bowie first was Golden Years.
Oh yeah,
I love the groove on that song. It's so tight.
That's another album that's really good too. It's from the album Station to Station.
When I worked at TK99, I started there in October of 99. We probably played 10 to 15 Bowie songs in rotation. And you're probably lucky if you hear 4 now.
Right.
If that. Golden Years was one of them. We used to play, we played 1984. We used to play Fashion. We played, we played Gene Genie. The station used to have a really deep playlist. But again, that was almost 30 years ago.
Right.
And things are what they are. And that's why we're here doing what we do, because we like playing newer artists or classic artists with new music. We feel that that's very important, that people still get a chance to discover music from artists they love, but we go deep into the discographies and try to pull out some gems that you might have forgotten. Even if they were played on the radio 40 years ago, they're not played anymore, and it's like swept under the rug.
And
I'm also revisionist history too, because funny thing I wanted to mention, I'm glad we're doing this, is there was a noted rock writer, legendary rock writer Dave Marsh, who passed away. And I don't want to speak ill will. Dave was a great writer. He was a little too fawning in his love for Bruce Springsteen, but be that as it may, he usually called it like he saw it, but he had a very strange relationship with 60s music. He mostly didn't like it.
yeah.
So that's part of the reason why, say, Rolling Stone magazine would slag off a lot of bands like The Love and Spoonful, Buckingham's, Paul Revere, Beach Boys.
Well, yeah, because it didn't fit their definition of cool, and,
Exactly.
but that's what Lester Bangs was, always railing against. Cameron Crowe talked about how Lester Bangs, said, it just becomes about, this industry of cool, man. And that scene in Almost Famous, where Philip Seymour Hoffman played Lester Bangs, that's almost word for word exactly what Lester Bangs told a young Cameron Crowe when they met up in a cafe in San Francisco back in the day. So,
they had two different schools of thought. Again, Dave Marsh, legendary writer. I've read a lot of his work. The Rolling Stone record guide that he edited and wrote a lot of the reviews for is a extremely, still to this day, useful tool if you're looking to build a record collection, but you don't want every single record from an artist. But they definitely had their biases in, say, Rush, for instance. Every Rush album got 1 star. Obviously, they didn't really listen to those records. They just were like, we don't like Rush,
right,
so we're only giving it
they
1 star.
them off.
And I'm not saying that Lester Bangs was a Rush fan.
No.
But Lester wrote, I think Dave Marsh's writing style was more literate not to say Lester Bangs isn't literate.
No, but Lester Bangs had more of the kind of stream of consciousness.
And he was a street soul guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He never lost that feel of being in the rock and roll clubs, where I think some of these other writers really got enamored with being on stage in front of 50,000 people. Yeah, it was a different mentality.
Yeah, they had the kind of highfalutin thing, whereas Lester Bangs was like, give me the dirt, give me the grime,
So I have a very revisionist history of rock and roll, and that's kind of like a little subtle. Maybe not so subtle, but that's another reason why I wanted to do this. I wanted to kind of give my version of what I think rock and roll is, what it could be. And a lot of that was because, let's be honest, maybe because of the costumes, maybe because Paul Revere wasn't, a pot-smoking hippie. The Raiders have never really gotten a lot of, they get a lot of credit from people in the underground press that, the garage band press, places like Shindig Magazine or Ugly Things and things like that. But as far as the mainstream rock press of the time, Spin, Rolling Stone, they are just treated as just junk, essentially.
In the modern parlance, though, Paul Revere and the Raiders have found a staunch supporter in Quentin Tarantino, the filmmaker. He really likes them and puts their music in a lot of his movies.
I saw that film. We're talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I saw that probably 4 times in the theater, not just because of the Paul Revere references. It's just a great movie.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I saw it twice with you, Mike, right?
Yeah.
We watched it like almost 2 days in a row. We went back.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
It's just, the cast. You say what you want about the violence level of Quentin Tarantino movies, but he picks the perfect cast for his films.
Yes. And his soundtracks are amazing.
Exactly. Perfect cast, perfect soundtracks.
Same with John Waters. John Waters has amazing soundtracks.
They write, again, kind of going back to Lester Bangs, they are true fans of the form, and they merge all those interests together the way a true fan was. Cameron Crowe does the same thing. Lester Bangs does. Obviously, John Waters does. A little more skewed, but you got to be on a certain wavelength to like. I mean, same with Quentin Tarantino. You got to be on a certain wavelength, and to tie that back into the Wax Museum, because we're obviously nowhere near the success or anything of those artists, but we look at it almost through a funhouse mirror lens, in that we want to show the other side of rock and roll that doesn't get the love that it deserves.
Yeah, those corners of the funhouse mirror that you're not always directly looking at. That's where you'll find us.
I'd say all 3 of us, when I say the 3, I mean like John, Mike, and I, to speak about John. John obviously is the biggest Eddie Money fan I've ever met. He could tell you arcane details about Eddie Money or Benny Mardones. And they are both successful artists, were both successful artists. But again, not exactly Rolling Stone cover material.
Yeah.
And then Mike's Paul Revere would probably be the Turtles.
Yeah.
Again, another legendary group that if you dig into their discography,
their album cuts are off the hook.
And we play a lot of them. I remember the first time you played Me Somewhere Friday Night, I didn't have Turtle Soup yet. I hadn't found that album. And I remember when you brought your copy in and you played Somewhere Friday Night, it just blew my mind. And Mike's done this a lot with his musical choices over the years. Another great example would be the 101 Strings, the Astro 2000.
Yeah, Beyond the Year 2000.
Yeah.
with the animated egg.
Yeah, I mean, it's stunning. It just floored me the first time I heard it. And so that's kind of the thing that goes with both John and Mike. And then with me in the mix is we have this strange confluence of styles and interests, and they overlap, but they also have their own distinct. There's a lot of distinct changes within that as well, and it's been a fascinating ride. And I'm happy, Mr. Steve, with your help, we've been able to bring this back with YouTube, and hopefully we're going to continue to thrive more.
Yeah, man, it's just been fun with me. Going back to the 80s set that we had in there, the last 2 songs that you chose in there, I was I was really pleased to see Holding Back the Years by Simply Red is I don't know, I just love that tune. I think Mick Hucknall is one of the great soul singers, and he's kind of like everybody sort of, everybody knows this song because it's so good, but I mean, he's just a great singer. And I really like that track, but the one that really surprised me that you chose there was Kiss Him Goodbye by the Nylons version of it. What made you choose that this week?
Oh, that song was huge when I was in 3rd grade, 1987. You heard it on 93Q all the time, and I used to listen. I was a 93Q listener.
Yeah, of course. I was too back then.
And obviously an MTV viewer, and I spent a lot of time with my older sister Paige listening to both Top 40 Radio, and to bring up Jason Lombardi and his brother Drew. We spent a lot of summers listening to 93Q while fooling around, causing mischief and panic in our neighborhood.
Well, that's the thing about the Nylons version of Kiss Him Goodbye. I remember that summer too that it was popular because my neighbors who lived across the street, Steve and Dan Needle, their dad,
the Needles,
the Needles. You're right. Their dad Bruce was a real big music fan, and Bruce had bought the cassette of the Nylons album. And that summer, we must have listened to that album and that track in particular like 100 times I remember in their garage, because in the summertime Bruce would keep the garage doors open, and he had like a screen door that he put in there, so like it was like during the summer the garage was kind of like a temporary 3-season room. And that's where we hung out as kids. And I remember they had this braided rug that everybody had in like the 80s in the center of the garage, and there was a boom box, and they had a poster on the wall for a movie, and I'll never forget it because the poster was for a 1984 Michael Caine movie called Blame It on Rio. And it was like, like this really good looking lady in a bikini, and I remember sitting there listening to the Nylons, looking at that poster, drinking a soda in their garage, and when I heard that song this week on there, it really brought me back to that moment.
That was a number 14 hit as well. I mean, it was a big hit, and I've never heard it on the radio since then, so but that's what we like to do. It's funny you mention that, because to bring up Jason and his brother Drew one more time, because they were longtime childhood friends. The summer of '86 would have been the summer of Genesis, because we listened. That album was just so big, and I know there's people like, ooh, Invisible Touch is lame, and as an adult today, I would prefer to listen to Trick of the Tail, Wind and Wuthering.
Right.
But
as a kid,
as a gateway drug into Genesis, you can't go wrong with Invisible Touch.
Dude, it's so funny that you bring that up too, because that album was the previous summer in the Needles garage. That was the album that Bruce bought, and then we listened to all as kids.
So to wind this all up, it just shows you that this era, or these eras, because obviously Steve and I are in the same era, and then Mike and John are in kind of the preceding era, but we all blend together, that this all happens for a reason. And that's another reason why I want to keep this going, because this is like family to me. It's like community, and it keeps us grounded to our youth in one way or another. And, we really appreciate it. And we appreciate you, Mr. Steve, for doing these companions.
Yes, thank you.
I enjoy this. I mean, I know we like talking about all this stuff here, So, to kind of wrap up the final thought here, I want to talk about Mike has a pick in the show that was really interesting to me. It was She's So Fine by Flash Cadillac and the Continental Kids.
Yeah, it was one of the only original tunes used in American Graffiti. It wasn't an oldie, it was by an oldies cover band. But, Flash Cadillac and the Continental Kids.
Yeah, in the early 70s, there was, before we even there were some groups that were kind of mining a roots rock sound, Commander Cody, which we played the following previous week. Shauna Na being the biggest one.
Bowser.
And Flash Continental, or Flash
Cadillac
and the Continental Kids. And it's, and the 50s was all the rage in the 70s again. And Mike can definitely, I wasn't alive really for that. But.
No, but like it's obvious. There was a big 50s nostalgia boom in culture in the 70s at the time, between American Graffiti and then Happy Days. Yes,
Laverne and Shirley. And then Shauna Na had their own variety show too, which brought back a lot of the 50s artists.
Yeah, and even the early Midnight Specials.
Yeah.
The first 2-3 seasons of Midnight Special, you had Chubby Checker on there a few times. Freddie Cannon was on there. Chuck Berry, Little Richard. There was a revival of interest in the roots of rock and roll, and it's interesting that era. And some of those artists were having hits again. Chuck Berry was having hits. Jerry Lee was having hits. Rick Nelson was having hits. And it was a pretty interesting time.
Oh yeah, Rick Nelson had a garden party that really hit it.
Yeah. But She's So Fine is definitely a standout track from American Graffiti, and also in the film too. Yeah. However, they're not playing vintage correct instruments in the movie, but whatever. I'm not. No one criticizes George. Okay.
No, we don't criticize the George Lucas.
Yes, that's right. You want reality? Look out the window.
Well. Look, the same as the Buddy Holly story. I thought Gary Busey did a great job, but he's playing a 1978 Stratocaster. It just, my mind.
Yeah, when you're a pedantic nerd like us, that drives us nuts.
You didn't know Buddy Holly had a time machine, did you?
I didn't. If he did, he'd know better. Sorry, buddy.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this week's show, and I'm looking forward to next week's show. We, unfortunately, we got the news this week that Frank Beard from ZZ Top had passed away, and so we're busting out the ZZ Top next week, and I'm looking forward to that. They were a pretty influential band for me as a kid.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not just from MTV, but all the 70s music. And we're going to have some fun surprises. So it's not just going to be like a, hit slop.
Right.
You're going to hear some deeper cuts and some things that Dusty Hill and Frank Beard did before ZZ Top.
Yeah, that I'm excited about. That's pretty cool stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, ZZ Top was one of the bands that I loved to listen to in the car. Back
Yeah,
in the days of muscle cars.
Yeah.
DeGuelo especially.
Oh, yeah.
I had the 8-track of DeGuelo in my 65 SS, and that sounded so good in that car.
That's a great album. And that was a comeback record for them, too. They'd been out for a few years.
Great version of I Thank You on there.
Cheap Sunglasses.
Yeah, oh, God.
Manic Mechanic.
Is Heard It on the X on that album?
No,
No,
that
that's
was
on El Loco?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or no, that's on Fandango, I
Oh,
think.
it's on you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking Tube Snake Boogie. That's on El Loco.
Tube Snake
yeah.
Boogie's amazing, too.
Gotcha.
That's another good one to hear in the car.
A nice bridge to the Eliminator era.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's a good cruising tape, too.
Eliminator?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Like there are some people that kind of bag on that because of the, the synth loops and everything like that. But man, I honestly think that Billy Gibbons blended their patented Texas blues boogie with 80s production techniques and the mounting use of more advanced synthesizers and synthesizer loops. I mean, like it's perfect. Like, man, like you can't deny the power of legs. Like you got the like kind of thing going with the synth, and then the big E chords.
I mean, my thoughts on that are even more blunt. You could either cling to your pearls and be like, I wish X was still X, or you could just appreciate that they continued on, unlike a lot of other groups that faded away.
Yeah, just stopped.
That are now forgotten. See, because here's the biggest, and not that we wanted to go on for hours and hours with this thing, but if you just cling to your pearls and say, I wish this was this, then a great example would be like, oh, well, the Rolling Stones were only good with Brian Jones. Okay,
Right.
Let's look at that logically.
No.
One thing, Sticky Fingers and Exile Main Street are great records, and that's all Mick Taylor.
Yeah.
And not only that, if they ended with Brian Jones's death, you wouldn't have a ton of great songs
Yeah, are you
that
kidding?
came out afterwards, and albums too, obviously.
Wild Horse is probably one of the best rock ballads ever written.
Yeah, Moonlight Mile.
Yeah.
There's so many great songs in their discography, at least through the 70s anyways.
Far Away Eyes.
Yeah, but if you...
What about Emotional Rescue?
If they just stopped, then
Right.
they'd be forgotten, And now they're legends. It's the same as ZZ Top. So say what you want about the synthesizers and all that. We don't really care.
We
like it all.
I liked it. I liked it all. Yeah, I like Tres Hombres and I like Eliminator. So it's all there.
TV dinners.
Anyway,
That was a great video.
you can look forward to all that next week on the Wax Museum. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Wax Museum podcast companion. And we hope to see you around the dial. Listen to our show Sunday nights, live premiere from 7 to 10 p.m. And then afterwards from 10 to 11, the smooth, dulcet sounds of the Night Owl Lounge.
He's definitely smooth and dulcet.
Very smooth. All right. Thank you for listening to the Wax Museum Radio Network. I am Mr. Steve, along with
Ronnie Magnus.
And Night of Owl.
Good night, folks.
Good night.
We'll be right back.